This is my third attempt at trying to record this very simple video, and I'm getting fed up because the first time I said something I really didn't need to say, and the second time I fat-fingered my phone, and then I ended up stopping the recording halfway through. So if you don't get it in it, so this third attempt is the final one. So we have a test on Thursday, and in probability theory, and he gave us a list of notes for us to study this weekend. It's Thursday right now, so we have 1 week to essentially prepare and know all of this material. He wants us to know all of the homework problems, which his homework problems are online. They're through his website. And the thing about his homework is that if you don't take a picture or print it out, then once you turn in the homework, it's no longer accessible to you. So unfortunately for me, I always forget to do that. So as soon as I submit the homework and get my grade, I was like, oh crap, now I don't know what the homework problems were anymore. Or, I mean, in the moment I know them, but like a week from then, I don't know what they are. So that kind of sucks for me. But I'll get them from someone else. And then we need to know the definition of conditional expectation as a countable partition. So we need to know this random variable. It's called expectation of x, given that we have the sigma algebra generated by the partition Ci. And it looks like an expectation, and it is an expectation, but it's more than that. It's a random variable, and the definition is associated on the right side there. So I need to know this definition and the properties that follow from it, which means we need to know the property small sigma field wins, determined factor comes out, and the linearity property. Linearity just means that if you have a sum or difference here, you can split it up into two pieces. Small sigma field wins means that if I take this random variable and take it over a larger random, or not a larger random variable, a larger sigma field, it will reduce to the smaller sigma field case. We need to know the definition of conditional expectation as a Radon-Nikodym derivative, which in his notes he calls conflict resolution, and then the properties that follow from it. So it's basically two different ways of defining the same thing that reduce to the same thing. And then he moved on to chapter 7 material, but he forgot about conditional Jensens because we were talking about being able to generate new martingales from olds, and you can do it by passing through a convex function, which is about Jensen's inequality. Jensen's inequality deals with convex functions. And he didn't say Jensen's by name, and I asked him if we needed to know Jensen's inequality, and that reminded him to include this from chapter 6. And then I got a bunch of dirty looks from everyone in the room for adding more material. But whatever. And then we need to know, as I mentioned earlier, martingales. This is chapter 7 material. We should know the definition of sub-super martingales, sub-martingales and super martingales, and check the 9 examples from the text. So his 9 examples are essentially, I don't know if he's going to ask us to just provide an example or whatever, but I guess just be comfortable with them. I'm not entirely sure what he wants us to know. And then we need to make new martingales from old ones. I mentioned that earlier. Dub's decomposition theorem. I don't know if we need to prove it. He just wrote Dub's decomposition. I don't think we will because he mentions Dub's maximal inequality, and he said we need to know the statement and the proof. And it's the only one where he asked us, specifically to know the proof. And then for the following two, Dub's upcrossing inequality and the Martingale convergence theorems, because there's more than one. I think he just wants us to know the statement and how to apply them. And the application problems for a lot of this stuff in graduate level math is the hardest stuff. Because all of the textbooks really deal with the theory, but they don't really talk about the applications. Well, I mean, they do, but it's hard to come up with an application, and it's hard to identify it. That's kind of where you really start to understand the material. And given a week's worth of studying, I don't know if it's 100% doable. I mean, I don't really have a choice. I mean, it's not like I've never been studying, because the probability theory is probably my strongest subject right now. because of how much measure theory is in it, and I've had real analysis a bunch of times. So it kind of comes quickly to me at this point, but I still need to review. And he didn't write this at the board. I think he did, I just didn't write it down. I'm not really sure why I didn't write it down. But we've been talking a lot about stopping times recently, and I know he's going to put it on the test, and there's some homework problems, not very many, that deal with stopping times and the important theorems that follow, like the optional sampling theorems, I think they're called, and there's 3 of them. We just talked about 1 and 2 today at the very end of class, and we didn't get to 3, but he said 3 is, I don't know what he said, natural for us. I don't know. If you understand 1 and 2, 3 will come natural, more or less, is what he said. And then if we know all of this stuff, we should be good. I kind of need to do well on that. I did okay, I should say that. I did okay on the first exam, and I've been doing really good on the homework this semester, but the homework is not weighted very heavily, so it's not going to make a big difference in the end. But because the thing about the first exam is that it wasn't hard, I just made it harder than it needed to be, because a lot of the times I'm not a very good test taker. I'm good at studying and doing homework problems and collecting problems, and I mean, you can see, what I'm capable of on the channel. But when it comes to, going in and taking the test, and you have an hour and however long it is to think on the spot, is where I kind of fall apart. So unless I know exactly what's going to be on the test, it'll either go very well or very poorly. I just need to get out of my own way, is what I'm trying to say. So hopefully I'll do well. The material's not too hard. It's just I need to quit being stupid. And so now we have a book that I asked my instructor for. I asked him if there were any good books on stopping times and the gambling process, because stopping times are used by gamblers to figure out when they need to walk away from the table. Because when you play, you'll win some and you lose some. But the idea is that a gambler will say, okay, I only want to, once I reach this amount, I'm going to walk away and not play anymore. So that over time, he can collect more and more winnings, I think is what they use. But that's essential. And then the Wall Street guys also do it. And I was very interested in this because I'm kind of interested in finance. And essentially, the way I think of it is that probability theory is just applied measure theory. And then applied probability theory is gambling. There's other things that go into it too. It's more than that. But I am not a gambler, but I'm kind of interested in it a little bit, and how people make a living at it, because it seems too scary to me. And I asked him for a book recommendation, and he recommended this book. It's called Inequalities for Stochastic Processes and How to Gamble If You Must. And I decided to show you guys the table of contents in case you're interested in the book. You can see I haven't read the book yet. It's very short, and if I can find time to read it, I'm going to. I'm a little bit of a man. I'm stuttering a lot. I read a lot these days, and so my reading is getting faster and faster, mostly because I'm familiar with a lot of the higher level concepts because I'm in this probability class, so that I can read through it. But I still want to give enough time to it so that I really understand what's going on. Houses on the real line. I wonder what that's about. Some general principles. 3 particular kinds of casinos. The scope of the gambler's problem. Although there may be some stuff in here I really don't understand. Let's see what the first chapter says, or first page. I'm not going to read a whole chapter in one video. That'd be insane. Imagine yourself at a casino with $1,000. For some reason, you desperately need 10 grand by morning. Anything less is worth nothing for your purpose. What ought you do? The only thing possible is to gamble away your last cent if need be in an attempt to reach the target sum of 10 grand. There may be a moment of moral confusion and discouragement for who has not been taught how wrong and futile it is to gamble, especially when short of funds. Yet gamble you must, or forego all chance of the great purpose that can be achieved only at the price of 10 grand payable at dawn. The question is how to play and whether or not you need to play. Not a whole lot of math in that first paragraph, but it is kind of interesting. So, if you're interested in gambling away your life savings, then I recommend reading this book first, because it came recommended to me from my instructor and I trust him. So hopefully when I find the time, I'll read through this book and see if it was actually worth reading. Anyway, wish me luck.